In my previous video, I covered the greatest players in alphabetical order from Alabama through North Dakota, and I'll leave a link down below if you missed it. Today, we will go over the rest of the states, naming their best current and all-time players based on data from AinsworthSports.com. To resume our journey, we will head to the birthplace of pro football, and home to the only defensive player ever to win the Heisman Trophy.
Thomas, intercepted by a flying Charles Woodson again!
Now really quickly, I gotta give a shout out to SeatGeek for sponsoring this video. We are now in the summer, baseball is poppin', concerts are awesome, and before you know it, football season will be kicking off. And I'm definitely gonna be getting out to some games this year. With over 28 million downloads, SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticketing app, and they take tickets to more than 70,000 events every single day and put them into one area, making buying simple. SeatGeek always wants to make sure that you're getting a good deal, so when you're on the app, look for the green dots. Green means good and red means bad. Every ticket is backed by their buyer guarantee, and SeatGeek is the only site that lets you return your tickets ahead of the event with swaps. And you know I came through for you guys. Use code KTO at checkout to save $20. Shout out to SeatGeek for the sponsor. Now let's get back to the video. This is one of the greatest football states in the country. First of all, pro football was born here in Canton, which is home to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Overall, Ohio has produced nearly 1,000 NFL players and 6 of the top 100 players ever. This ranks them out at number 5. Current notable NFLers include the Kelce brothers, Joe Burrow, and Marshawn Lattimore. And the best player ever from Ohio is legendary Cowboys quarterback Roger Staubach. Crazy enough, Staubach didn't even play in the NFL till he was 27, due to his commitment to the Naval Academy and serving in Vietnam as a Supply Corps officer. Despite this late start, Staubach became a 2-time Super Bowl champ, a Hall of Famer, and one of the most iconic players of the 1970s. Oklahoma, home to one of the blue blood college programs, and neighboring rival to the state of Texas, Oklahoma is a solid producer in pro talent compared to their population rank. Gerald McCoy, Lane Johnson, and George Kittle are the most notable active players from the state. And the GOAT of Oklahoma is Hall of Famer and Tulsa legend Steve Largent. At only 5'11" and 187 pounds, Largent was able to reach 7 Pro Bowls as the face of the Seahawks during their early days. He still has one of the best redemption moments in NFL history. Oregon. Going over to the Northwest, Oregon is home to Nike, the Oregon Ducks, and Trackdown USA. More known for their effect on running, Oregon comes in 30th, producing around 150 NFL players. But despite their low number of pros, they're home to a few big names. Current star quarterback Justin Herbert's from here, as well as Ndamukong Suh. These two round out their most notable pros today. And all time, Troy Polamalu and Bob Lilly are the state's top-ranked players ever. Lilly was a first-team All-Pro year in and year out with the Cowboys in the 60s and 70s.
Obviously, 7 seconds on the play clock. They got to hurry to get this one off.
They're going to get it.
Oh, just before it ran out. Shotgun. Marino throws deep downfield. It is caught by Fryer. Touchdown! Touchdown Dolphins! Marino to Fryer.
Home to the Eagles and Steelers, Pennsylvania has had a massive impact on football. Most think of the big 3, California, Texas, and Florida, but Pennsylvania is right up there. They've produced over 66 top 1,000 NFL players and 9 top 100 players, topping Ohio as the most dominant northern state, and this puts them at 4th overall. In the NFL today, they are home to the greatest active defensive player, Aaron Donald, and the greatest young defensive player, Micah Parsons. And all time, this has to be the greatest quarterback state in the country. Joe Montana leads the way amongst other Hall of Famers Joe Namath, Jim Kelly, Johnny Unitas, and Dan Marino. And overall, Montana and Donald are the state's greatest ever. It's kind of hard to pick one over the other as both land in the top 10 football players of all time. Now, on the contrary, Rhode Island has had very little impact on the football landscape due to how small of a population they have. With just 26 pros ever and 0 in the top 1,000, the smallest state in terms of square footage ranks out 45th overall. The best player ever from this state is former Raiders running back Mark Van Egan, who helped them win 2 Super Bowls back in the day. And currently, there's only one active player from the state, and that's Kwity Paye, who was drafted by the Colts in the first round back in 2021. Moving down the coastline, South Carolina, unlike North Carolina, has no major pro teams, but they are more known for football than basketball. They're home to some big-time college football programs, and have produced a decent amount of NFL players, ranking out 17th overall. Today, DeAndre Hopkins is the pride of the Clemson Tigers, Stephon Gilmore is the pride of the South Carolina Gamecocks, and South Carolina State Bulldog legend Shaq Leonard has been one of the best linebackers in the NFL since he entered the league. Now, as far as the GOAT from this state, that would be Hall of Famer Art Shell. Shell made 8 Pro Bowls in his career and later became a head coach for the Raiders. He holds the distinction of becoming the second African-American head coach in the history of pro football, and he's the first in the sport's modern era. Like Rhode Island, South Dakota has made very little impact on the game because of how small a population it has. This is one of the few states with less than 1 million residents. Today, there are 5 active players from the state, with 11-year starting tackle Riley Reef as the most accomplished. Technically, the highest ranked players from the state are brothers Pug and Jack Manders, who played back in the 30s and 40s. But a more recent example would be Chad Greenway, who was a solid linebacker with the Vikings, as he made 2 Pro Bowls with them. Tennessee. Home to the Tennessee Titans, this state comes in right around its population rank in terms of NFL talent production. As a whole, Tennessee has produced around 300 pros, with their most notable players being Jalen Ramsey, Harrison Smith, T. Higgins, and Tony Pollard. And Tennessee has also managed to produce 3 top 100 players ever, the best of which is Reggie White. White is a Hall of Famer and 13-time Pro Bowler, and is one of the most intimidating and downright dominant defensive players to ever grace the gridiron.
At full throttle, stirred to a frenzy, they want the record. Tomlinson, off the left side, Tomlinson sidesteps. Hello, history books.
Whether it's 20,000-seat high school football stadiums, the 25 Division I colleges, or the most popular and most hated football team in the world, you don't get that far into a conversation about American football without Texas popping up. In terms of NFL talent, they fall just behind California at number 2 with more than 11% of the top 1,000 football players ever. And among Texas high school football stars that are in the NFL today, Von Miller, Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Jones, and Mike Evans are the most notable. Now, out of the 30 Hall of Famers from Texas, the top ranked from the website is Forrest Gregg. Gregg played in the 50s and 60s and was arguably the greatest lineman of his generation and experienced winning the very first Super Bowl. Moving out west, Utah is home to BYU, the University of Utah, and gorgeous landscapes. But with a smaller than average population, this state ranks out 36th in producing pro football talent. With just around 20 or so current pros, the most notable are starters Garrett Bowles and Nick Vigil. And Utah is home to just one Hall of Famer that played in the Super Bowl era, Merlin Olsen. Olsen etched out 14 Pro Bowls during his 15 seasons with the Rams. Now, we move to the least impactful state in the country in terms of pro football talent, Vermont. Today, the only state with less people is Wyoming, but Wyoming has had over 5 times the amount of NFL players that Vermont has had. To put it simply, not only is Vermont small, but football just isn't that popular here. Even their biggest college, the University of Vermont, canceled football back in 1974. There is no active players from the state, and to my understanding, there hasn't been one since 1965. Coincidentally, their last active player was also their best, Bob Yates, and he was a 2-year starter with the Boston Patriots.
Vick on 2nd and 8, off the play fake, has some running room, inside the 30, inside the 20, Vick into the end zone, Falcons win in overtime.
As the highest populated state without a pro team, this state comes in right around its population rank. And as far as top 100 players, only 6 states have produced more than Virginia. Current notable players from here include Russell Wilson, Tremaine Edmonds, Jonathan Allen, and Wyatt Teller. And Virginia's greatest NFLer ever is the defensive GOAT, Lawrence Taylor. Taylor might be the greatest player ever, period. And as a whole, Virginia's produced an incredible amount of dominant defensive talent when you see their top players ever. Washington. As far as their recent population rank, they fall a little bit below that mark in talent production. Budda Baker and Cooper Kupp lead the way as the state's top players today, and all-time, Washington's greatest players ever are Mel Hein from back in the day and Drew Bledsoe from the modern era. Even though Bledsoe is well known for being the guy who Tom Brady replaced, he still made 4 Pro Bowls during his 14-year career. West Virginia, home to the Mountaineers and that one country song, West Virginia is not a highly populated state and has produced just around 100 pros. They are pretty efficient at churning out Hall of Famers, however, with 5 of those guys making it. Today, just 3 players are from West Virginia in the NFL, with the best being CJ Goodwin, a backup defensive back in Dallas. Also, West Virginia is home to one of the greatest receivers of all time, Randy Moss. Moss was a sensation at every level he played at. Wisconsin, home to one of the NFL's most iconic franchises, the Packers, who were also in the smallest market of any NFL team. Wisconsin, as far as talent production, is above average, and middle of the pack in regards to its neighbors. They've produced just over 250 total pros, with current star TJ Watt leading today's most notable players. And all-time, Steelers legend Mike Webster is Wisconsin's highest-ranked player. As the best center in football during the late 70s and early 80s, Webster's a huge reason why the Steelers were so dominant during those years. Wyoming. Not only are they last alphabetically among the states, but they're also the smallest in terms of population. The only reason this state has even showed up on the NFL radar recently was because Josh Allen played his college ball here. Overall, they rank 47th in talent production, which is actually decent considering their population. Bengals starting linebacker Logan Wilson is one of just 3 players from the state in the NFL. And their best player ever is former Cowboy star tight end Jay Novacek. He made 5 Pro Bowls back in the 90s and helped Dallas win 3 Super Bowls. Last but not least, the nation's capital. DC has produced a little less than 100 pros and 6 of the top 1,000. Current player Yannick Ngakoue is DC's best player today. And all time, this honor would go to Jonathan Ogden. At a massive 6'9" and 345 pounds, Ogden was a brick wall. He was a cornerstone left tackle with the Ravens for 11 seasons, and he is one of 3 Hall of Famers from DC.
And a touchdown. They give it to him. They give it to him on 2nd and 10, and he breaks a big one.